All right. I am here. How's everybody doing? Yeah, my voice is hurting a little bit. Oh, I'm here, everybody. I'm here. I'm here. As you can hear, I have a little bit of a throat thing going on. So everybody, I hope everybody's feeling better than I am. It is January. Hold on. Wow. All right. I got a lot of mucus coming up. I caught something in those last few days that I was in Pennsylvania, and I'm still fighting it. I feel perfectly fine, but something is going on right between like here and here. Lungs are fine, sinuses are fine, and I can clear my voice out for minutes, but then eventually the mucus all gets in the way again, and my voice goes to crap. I started started recording Friday's episode today, and I can clear my voice out for short stretches, but eventually it all goes bad again. Mucinex, huh, Jamie? Probably. I would probably work. I just haven't gotten around to it. But otherwise, I feel pretty fine. But I can tell you, when you hear Friday's episode, you're still going to be able to tell that my voice isn't quite 100%. Thanks, Michelle. I wouldn't say that I'm sick. I mean, I just went out and did some food shopping an hour and a half ago. So I'm fine. Get out. Everything's fine. And you can tell now my voice is clearing out, but I'm telling you, probably before this is over, you'll hear me all hacking again. But I hope you are all doing very well. Yes, I am back. As you can see, I am back in Florida. I drove here. I left about 4 o'clock on Monday and got here about 11:30, 4 p.m. Monday and got here at about 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday. Drove through the night, took a couple snoozes, had to take a detour, but I finally made it home, and everything's good. It almost feels like I never left, if that can even be believed. My landlord had gotten my mail for me, and so we're back to normal here. That's what's going on. It's good to see everybody tonight. Got a good show for you. Gonna do what like we usually do. Gonna go through some intro stuff. Gonna do some new stuff. Anybody has any questions that you'd like me to answer, we can do that. And there you go. And yes, I am wearing an Unfound t-shirt, as you can see right here. Here we go. I didn't have any while I was in Pennsylvania, and you know that I like to wear them when I do these live shows. Let's go here first. The Devon Bond poll was interesting to me. The number one choice ended up being that let me do something here. Ooh, do that. That he ran off, and his plan that night into the next morning was to commit suicide. That was the number one choice. Some people thought that he might have met foul play. Other people thought that he just ran off because things weren't going right in his life, but without the suicide. I'd say about 50% of the people picked one choice, and then the other two choices were split, So it was like 50% and then 30% and 20%. I wrote a very long blog about that, of course, for you Patreon members. And even after all of it, I really don't know what to think. I'm glad that people were able to pick a choice on the poll, but a lot of you also expressed the idea that there's a lot of different things that could have happened to Devon. All three of those choices are possible, even though I understand why people would pick suicide as the first one because of that gun being missing. So I just don't know. And, is this a situation where it was more like a prison break, where Like Devon did, pretending like he was under the covers with the towels and sheets and everything, that he was escaping forever? Or was this more like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where he made it look like he was still in bed sick, where of course he went out the whole day and then managed to make it back into bed before his parents realized it? I don't know. I mean, I guess that is an option we have to figure. Is it possible that he snuck out of the house because he was fully intending on coming back before anybody noticed that he was gone? It's something that is possible that I can't say I fully considered when doing the episode. So there's that. I really do not. If people are asking me about any Thomas Brown episodes, I don't have any. I don't have any. Nothing has happened in Canadian Texas that has made it here to Florida since Jeff Castleton's suicide the beginning of last week, which was, of course, before last Wednesday's live show. I don't have any updates. And I really have been trying to keep the rumorizing and sensationalism and everything to a minimum, especially in the Unfound podcast discussion group. I know that there is a lot of rumors out there. I realize that. Michelle's saying a person has been identified here in Texas, but they aren't releasing her name. Her name. Why do you think they aren't releasing her name? They compared dental records to prove, oh, that's Brandy Wells. You're talking about Brandy Wells. Okay. Yes. I don't know about that, Michelle. I thought you were talking about Thomas Brown's case. Let's just get, I really don't have anything to add about Thomas Brown tonight. So I'm sorry. Just no updates. And I'm not going to try to connect Jeff Castleton's apparent suicide, to anything having to do with Thomas' case. I realize there's a rumor out there that Jeff talked about in his note about the media and everything. I don't know. And that's really just where I'm going to leave it for tonight. As far as, yes, Brandy Wells, that is on my list of things to talk about, Michelle. So we will get to it soon. How about that? It's on the list. But yeah, the Devon Bond poll, the number one pick was that he left because he was intent on committing suicide somewhere. Now, as I was watching the people answering the poll, it occurred to me that I'm not sure why people realize I do those polls. I don't do them for entertainment. I don't do them because, I want to hear people's opinions, but that is not the main reason. The main reason that I do the polls in the discussion group is because I think it is important for my guests to realize the story that they are telling by presenting the facts the way they do during an interview. Because I've had this happen quite a few times where we will do an interview, or I'll do an interview and I'll talk to somebody and they'll be presenting all of this information to me about what they know about their disappearance of their son or daughter, whatever else. And I will give them my opinion. And then they'll ask me, well, how could you think that? They're not offended or anything, but they'll ask me, how could you even think that? And I'll tell them, well, I don't know any more than what you told me, and that's what you're telling me. And I think sometimes many people who have been maybe living with these disappearances for a while, the story that they think that they are telling in their head when they're talking about it is not the story that people are hearing. All right. So what they think they're saying and what people actually hear are two different things. And so the reason I do the poll, I put those polls out there, is so the guests can see what the listeners are hearing. All right. To make sure that it all makes sense. Okay. Because once again, I don't do it for entertainment value. Unlike people, some people just do these polls on Twitter, elsewhere, just to get clicks and everything else. That's not why I do it. I want the guests to realize what the listeners are getting out of the interview. That's why I do it. And I realize we have like 3,800 people in the discussion group now. And I realize maybe only maybe 100 to 150 people each week do the poll, and that's fine. But 100 to 150 people is a pretty good sample size, especially when it's a random selection of people all over the world, men and women, all different ages, all different demographics, just going there, listening, and then voicing their opinion. That way, the guests can understand more accurately the story that they're telling. And I think that's helpful to them. And I think it's helpful that then they realize how the public perceives what they are saying, instead of them just thinking, well, I'm telling them this, so they must think this. And we know that's not the way in life. The way we think that we explain things to people, oftentimes people hear it in a totally different way. And so I'm trying to break down that barrier by allowing the guests to see what the listeners heard and think about the case. That's why I do it. Marie, have you ever gone back to a guest after reviewing the recording and said that maybe they give more info, etc.? No, Marie, that stuff gets sorted out well before we ever do an official interview. Granted, there are some disappearances that have more facts than others, more information than others. And I think that is the direct reflection on some interviews are a lot longer than others. Some are 2.5 hours. Some are only 70 minutes. That's the way it goes sometimes. But no, that's just not the way I do things, Marie. I try to get all of the information up front so that I know what I'm working with. And then, I'll go over the information again with a possible guest. And I have never turned down a guest because there wasn't enough information. That's never happened. I've turned down guests for other reasons because they didn't want to talk about certain things because, frankly, it wasn't convenient to what they wanted to portray. I've declined some guests because of that. It's like they had a little bit of an agenda. And I've turned down a couple guests because I didn't think they were emotionally ready to be interviewed. I thought that, in a certain way, I might be seen as exploiting somebody's emotions by interviewing them, and I never want to be seen as that type of person. It's horrible. But no, I've never turned down a case or a guest because I thought they needed to give more info. Okay. I try to be as upfront as I can with them. Hey, Joyce, what's going on? I try to just be upfront with them and telling them, you need to tell me everything. Okay. If afterwards we decide that this shouldn't be mentioned or that shouldn't be mentioned for investigation reasons or whatever, then we can pick through that. But I try to question the guests hard enough to make sure I'm not missing anything. All right. And that after 115 cases, I think that I should be good at that. Maybe sometimes I don't get out as much out of them as I would like, but I surely believe that the interviews that I've done had more than enough info, more info than you're going to find anywhere else on any podcast or TV show or any blog or anywhere else. And as long as that is the case, I think that I'm doing my job, Marie. So there you go. But getting back to the poll with Devon Bond, that's why I do the poll. I do it for the guests' benefit. I don't do it for my own or the listeners. I need to mention this. Patreon. We're going to be adding something new to Patreon, and it's going to start February 10th. So not this Sunday, which is Super Bowl Sunday, but a week and a half from now. If you are a Patreon member and you are contributing at least $10 a month, there is going to be another live show that I'm going to do on patreon.com on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. All right, so technically there will be now 2 live video shows in which I'm hosting them. One, the one you're watching right now, that's always going to be free for everybody. But there's going to be an additional one for Patreon members on Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern. But the show's going to be a little different. I'm going to try to concentrate mainly on the case that was just covered that previous Friday, so 2 days before the show airs. And hopefully myself and the Patreon members that qualify, we can talk over theories. They can ask me questions. And I'm hoping to get more discussion about going about these cases so that, we can give this feedback back to the guests. All right. So we can throw around some ideas and theories and everything else. And also there'll be some, ask me anything situations and things, but I think it'll be a much more intimate, personal show because there won't be as many people there. And we'll get some good discussion going on. I'll have more discussions going back and forth because, like with this show, there's many people and it's hard to have discussions with every one of you. It's just not possible. Been in a more intimate setting where I think the viewers are maybe going to be maybe 12 to 15, maybe 20. It's easier. And that's what I'm hoping to get out of that. So if you're not a Patreon member and that sounds interesting to you, maybe get to talk to me a little more one-on-one than in this sort of venue, I would urge you to sign up on Patreon. But like I said, it's going to be for people who are $10 and up. And the reason that is because if I were to do everybody, we now have 100 some Patreon supporters there, and it just wouldn't be the right feeling for what I'm trying to go for. All right. And I apologize for those people that are donating, contributing $2, $5 a month. You're fantastic. Okay. But this is going to be something that is for the higher level tiers. Sorry about that. That's just the way it has to be. Thank you, Oakley. Kelly says, goody. So excited. Thank you. Jules, is there a case that keeps me up at night? Not really, Jules. No. I sleep pretty well. If you're meaning that literally, I sleep pretty well. Figuratively, all the cases that I've ever covered on Unfound are always on my mind. I see the pictures of all of the missing persons that Unfound has ever covered. I see their pictures every day on my computer. I see everyone from Suzanne Lau, which was the first case, right up to last Friday with Devon Bond. I see all of their pictures every day when I'm going through the files on my computer. So they're always on my mind, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they keep me up at night. In fact, I'm sure the families hope I'm getting a good rest at night so I can continue to do this. So there's that. So let's move on. So the Patreon, once again, it's going to start February 10th, 7 p.m. Eastern. And it's going to be on patreon.com. And you will access it just like you do this show. I'll be there. I'll come on at 7 o'clock Eastern, and we'll just have a good time of it, covering a case, the preceding Friday's case, as well as we can. Really get some good discussion going. And it'll be very private too, of course. One more thing about intro stuff before we get into some news. And that is posting in the group. We have like 3,800 people there. And I'm going to post something in the group as well. But it's probably getting obvious to me that I probably need to repost the standards by which things can be posted in the discussion group. The posting should be limited to recent missing persons cases. Okay, I don't care if Unfound is covered or not. But recent missing persons cases. So things that are popping up in your area, your town, your city, your state that you feel people should know about. Of course, I would want those posted. You can also post breaking news on old cases, whether they are missing persons cases or murders. Doesn't even, maybe it could even have something to do with a heist or something like that. Those types of things are also permitted to be posted in the group. All right, because I think that creates good discussion. I think that's well along the lines of what Unfound does. But here's some things that should not be posted in the group. No rumors and things, no outside postings from like Reddit or anywhere else where people, there's no way to back up what they're saying and to prove anything that they're saying is true. Okay? I don't want that stuff going on in the group. We are perfectly allowed to theorize on the facts presented, whether it's on Thomas Brown case or any other case. Perfectly reasonable to talk about theories based on the facts presented. But when it gets to, theorizing and talking about, for example, Jeff Castle's state of mind and everything, that's totally uncalled for. Okay? I just think that's wrong. And so I'm trying to stay away from that stuff because it just doesn't help anybody. Anybody can have wild theories. And of course, as you know, also no psychic stuff, no ghost whisperer stuff, no palm reading stuff. None of that stuff is permitted in the group either. And, if your post is going to start out, hey, well, I heard ... that is probably not a post that you should post. Okay? If you have experienced something personally in a case, then please post it. But if it's just some person that you've read on some website, it's just not appropriate for the Unfound podcast discussion group. It's not. Now, TV shows. Some people have posted a few things about, hey, have you seen this new true crime show? That is on a case-by-case basis. If it's disappeared, then it's absolutely permitted. But you start straying farther and farther away from missing persons, the less likely I am to permit it in the group. Okay? And even me, myself, and we're going to get into this, I posted on that Smiley Face Killer show that was on this past weekend. That would, something along those lines, of course, can be posted by you, not just me, but all of you, because I've talked extensively about it. All right, so that would be permitted as well. But I don't want to get to the point where people are going in there and just posting some crime show and saying how great it is. And if that's not the reason the discussion group exists. What else did I want to say about that? What else is not permitted? No fundraising is permitted. No GoFundMe pages or anything like that. Because if I were to allow one, then that's not, the whole discussion group would be nothing but that. Okay. Publicizing of other podcasts. I will let it go if it is a podcast that is covering a case that Unfound covered. But once again, I don't want to get into a situation where people can come in and think that they can advertise their own show in a discussion group. It's not meant for that either. But if there's some other show, other podcast that is covering any case that Unfound is covered, I think that that's allowable. Okay? Once again, I will type this all out. It will be posted in the discussion group in the next few days because I feel like it's gotten a little, I wouldn't say wild by any means. It's gotten a little loose. I've probably let some things go that I shouldn't have. And I think I just need to rein it back in, maybe just about 10%. So all of you can be looking for that. Marie says, I guess my psychic career is over. Well, Marie, there's a lot of different ways to make money in the world. You don't have to be a psychic. And, everybody knows by this time my attitude toward them. They have no credibility. It's just the way it is. And any time anybody ever posts something like that and I see it, it gets deleted. And if you'll remember going back 6 months, I tried to have a conversation with somebody who posted something in the group. and they automatically got very defensive, then blocked me. So there you go. You're yeah, Cherie is saying petitions. My business manager Cherie is saying petitions. Yeah. Petitions are also not something, go here to sign up for because once again, if I permit it, then everybody is going to want to put something in there. And I know a lot of them are, and I'm not going to pick it out on a case-by-case basis. It's just all of them are not permitted. All right. And that even goes for former guests on the program. All right. It's just, once again, not the reason the discussion group was created. Okay. Might be of time for a few mods in the group. I think I do just fine, Maria. I think it's just been that I've been in Pennsylvania doing some other things and haven't had as much time to devote to it. So I just don't, I think I'm doing just fine, Marie, but that's just, I probably, once again, I've let some things go and I just can't do that. And that's my fault. So you're having some buffering problems. I'm sorry to hear that. Christina, what's going on? So let's move on. So posting in the group, I just covered that. I thought that I wanted to cover that right here before you saw anything written in the group. I thought this was a good time to do this. So let's move on to, let me see if I missed anything here. Bree asked me, is there a case I won't cover? The general answer is no. The technical answer probably is yes. And I'll talk to anybody. That doesn't mean it's going to end up being an episode. All right. That doesn't mean that. It all depends on whether, it all depends on what happens when I talk to the guest or the family member, whoever it is. I'll talk to anybody. That doesn't mean it's going to become an episode. Some of the reasons that I would talk to somebody and not become an episode, maybe that's a good way to answer this, is, as I already mentioned, some people only want to tell you half the story. They don't want to cover this stuff over here because of certain reasons. They only want to say this over here, even though this stuff over here is fact also. I can't deal with those people. Okay? I can't deal with them. Other people who have agendas. And then some just people who are just, straight up liars. I've run into a couple of those. And then there's those cases. I always bring this case up, Mara Murray. That is a case that, to me, covering it is pretty thankless. You cover that case and you're automatically put into a certain clique. You think this, you cover it this way, when then you don't know this and you're not, and I just don't have any time for that. I don't have any time for that. I'm not in any clique. I'm as independent a guy and podcaster as there is. I would love to talk to Mara Murray's, I guess it's mostly her father who is the most visible one. I'd love to talk to him sometime. Absolutely. Could we do an interview for an episode? We'd have to talk about that because he, of course, of anybody knows how divisive that case is, how it seems like it has brought so many kooks out of the woodwork. And so we'd have to talk about it. We'd have to talk about it. Yeah, Cherie, it has been a rough few months for everyone. So there you go. Yes. So is there a case that I would not cover? I cannot give an absolute no. It just depends on who I end up talking to and what they have to say. There you go. Bree says the Mara Murray case is a crazy case. I don't know what to think. Sometimes I think she is dead and other times I think she ran off. What do you guys think? There Please, everybody, please answer Bree and her question. I'd love to see what all of you think as well. Marcus, have I ever talked to a suspect? Yes, I have. In fact, it just happened in the Judith Emke case where I talked to her old next door neighbor. Remember that? Pat Richardson? I talked to him. What do I make of him? I don't know. It's hard to tell and just talking to him in a half hour over the phone. But yes, I have talked to, that's one that pops to mind. And he and I had a cordial conversation. Doesn't mean much. It's still possible that he's the one that made Judith disappear. But yes, I have. Yeah. Let's move on to the news. I talked about the Smiley Face Killer TV show, and some of you saw me post about that about 5 days ago. I thought that it was the worst in the worst you could do for a TV reality show, which is how it came across, frankly. I thought it was disgusting. How do you go for an hour talking about how a young man, how he drowned in Pittsburgh, and then never mention whether water was found in his lungs or not? I don't know. I watched the entire show. They never talked about it. Never talked about it. The marks on the neck. It said, well, it looks like somebody had their fists around his neck. Well, are we sure that those finger marks didn't come from when, I think the kid's name was Dallas, was pulled from the river? Is that possible? Because you have to watch that particular episode, and it just happened to be that I was in the Pittsburgh area when I saw it, them covering this Pittsburgh case, that if you listen to what the river rescue people said, they said that when they found his body in the river, it had no marks on it. But then the coroner, when he looked at the body, he said that there were marks on the back of the neck, like this, and then marks, like fist marks, like knuckle marks, right here on the body. Well, how can that be? How could the guys who rescued this, found the body, say there were no marks? And how is it the coroner saw marks? I know what I think. I think they made marks on the body as they were pulling this guy out of the water. It would be very sensible, if you think about it, for if the body's in the water, they go down, they grab probably the shirt or something like that and pull the guy out right up in this area of his body. And as far as the neck marks were not on the front, where if somebody was strangled, the marks would be on the front of the neck, not the back, as is described in that episode. You can see the guy saying, there are marks right here, there's marks right here. Or are we sure that those marks were not made when the body was finally put into the boat and the body was laid down on its back? Once again, these things are not explored in that episode of the Smiley Face Killer show, which leaves me suspicious. If I can figure that out in 2 minutes watching the episode, then the people who made the program, including the detectives that are the hosts of the show, can figure it out, but somehow it's never mentioned. Call me suspicious. Call me suspicious. And it just is, I'm going to continue to say it. These detectives who are pushing this theory are doing nobody any favors, including themselves. The only people they're doing any favors for are the advertisers on the Oxygen Network. That's it. That's it. I'm going to keep, and I have to say, it feels to me that myself and these guys who do this show are heading toward a confrontation somewhere down the road. I've not heard from any of them. I've not sent them any messages. The problem is that I go out there to find other podcasters, true crime podcast hosts who are talking about this the way I'm talking about it. None of them are. None of them. None of them. If anything, there are too many podcast hosts, true crime podcast hosts, who have bought into the theory that these smiley face killers actually exist. I kind of feel like a little like alone in a forest somewhere talking about this. And I can't help, as Unfound gets more and more popular, and as you know it is, the listenership went up 40% last year. It feels to me that eventually myself and these guys are going to have a run-in. And I welcome it. I really do welcome. I'm not looking for it. I'm not looking for a confrontation. I'm not looking for an argument or anything. But I can't help but say what I think these guys are doing is disgusting. I think it is. On top of everything else, do they not realize that how they are undermining their own profession? Because they're essentially saying that there's a bunch of serial killers who have gotten away with all of these murders over the course of 10, 11, 12 years, or maybe longer, and police departments can't solve these cases. It makes those police departments look inept. And these three guys who are doing this are doing it for no reason than their own fame and fortune. And they will sell out anybody, including their former fellow police officers, to do it. To me, that's disgusting. It's disgusting. So, that's what I have to say about that. I think that my theory, my attitude toward it is well known. What is everybody saying here? Talking about Marmari, James Redder said some horrible things about Marmari family. That's true. Media guy says, look at it this way. So many cases on unsolved mysteries back in the day, they pushed really out there theories. Then years later, they find the person's remains a mile or less away from where they disappeared. That's true. Cherie says, how about Jamie Kloss getting her own reward money? Appropriate and awesome. I have no problem with that, Cherie. I have no problem with that. But I would certainly like to hear anybody's opinions on if they've seen the Smiley Face Killer show on Oxygen. Here in Florida, I don't have cable. I don't have Dish Network, anything. So I wouldn't have seen it, but it was late night. I was in bed at my dad's place. The TV was on. It was like midnight or 1 a.m. or something. And there it was. And it happened to be the Pittsburgh case. And I said, okay, I'm going to watch it. I'm kind of glad I did, and kind of glad kind of unhappy that I did. So, there you go regarding Smiley Face Killers. Once again, if anybody has seen the show or any of the other episodes, I'd like to hear your impressions about it. And of course, we could talk about it in the discussion group. Something else that I posted about that particular episode is if you watch it, you will begin to learn what is called confirmation bias, meaning these guys are not going into these cases unbiased. They're not letting the facts determine their theory. They're going in with a theory and they're looking for anything that proves their theory. That's not the scientific method. You take facts and then try to put a theory, you attach it to a theory, and you do it independently for everything that you run into. Okay? Whereas it was obvious, there was one part in there where that one guy says, see, there's a smiley face over there, so this must be where the body went into the water. It's just, and I hate it because I know people are watching it. I've saw people on my own friends list on Facebook talking about the show, and I really don't want to get into it with them, but they're saying they're shocked how people don't know about this. And I just don't want to get into it with them, on my regular friends' Facebook news feed. So Bree asked me, are they saying the Smiley Face Killer is a group of people doing it or one person? That's the part I never understood about the theory. Bree, you got me. I mean, if you listen to them, they'll have you believe that it's been going on for 20 years. So have serial killers gone on for solo serial killers gone on for 20 years? Yes. Yes. I really don't know. Once again, it seems to me it's a theory in search of facts, not the opposite. And I think that I think that their theory depends. They will alter their theory, anything to fit what they already think. So I don't even know how to answer that. I don't know. If it was on at midnight, that is a sign of what the network thought of it too. Awful. Well, Maria, I'm thinking, I think I watched a rerun. I actually think that probably played in prime time at least a couple days before that. I don't know that for a fact. But yeah, I think I was watching a rerun, but I do take your point, and you're right. On at midnight. I'm surprised it wasn't some infomercial on there instead. Oakley Fight Club, should I watch the Smiley Face show? Should you watch it? I think that you should watch one episode. Independently pick one episode and watch it. That means, at least you won't waste too much time. Heather says, I didn't watch it after I read your post. Okay. Well, that makes sense too, Heather. I can't blame you for that. Tracy says, I think they stray so far from the facts to make content to get ratings for the show. Exactly. It is entertainment. I know that this is horrible, but I start to question. I don't know if they really want these cases solved or not. I think these cases all are solved. I think that I've made my point over and over and over. It's not surprising to me that people who get drunk stumble and happen to fall into a bottle of water. That doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me in an age of addictions, with legal drug addictions and illegal drug addictions, that people get crazy thoughts in their heads, maybe some being suicidal. That doesn't surprise me at all. The suicide rate in the United States is up since I was born in 1970. So once again, that adds to the probability that these people did commit suicide. That none of that is talked about when they discuss this theory. It just shows you how much of a, look over here, don't look over here, kind of a magician's thing is going on with the theory. And on top of everything else, it doesn't surprise me that people who are drunk can't swim. That doesn't surprise me either. So, they do it. But Tracy, you're right. It's great entertainment. And it's certainly great entertainment if you don't know the motivations of these people, and you're not into true crime as much as we are. All of us, yourselves, all of you watching tonight, yourselves included, who have educated yourselves. To us, we kind of smell these things out. We can listen to 5 or 10 minutes and figure out, something doesn't sound right here. A lot of people who don't listen to true crime podcasts and everything, a lot of them don't know any better. And they love a good, interesting story. They love thinking about people creeping around at 2 a.m. for some reason. I don't know why, but they do. Blaze says, I don't believe like the smiley. Love the smiley that you put there, Blaze. Nicely done. Love it. They drink themselves to the point the brain malfunctions. In nature, animals are drawn to water right before they die. Nana says, I watched the one from La Crosse, Wisconsin. They made that mom cry. I was so upset they got their hopes up. It's their only child. I realize that's who I feel bad for, these families that, they're so desperate for information. And what happens is these snake oil salesmen come in and start to sell them on something, that there's some murder out there. And then these families will spend the rest of their lives, whereas these guys will move on to the next case and do everything else, whereas these families will look for this murder for the rest of their lives when the murder doesn't exist. This is why when I deal with families, I tell them exactly what I think. And it's not based on any theory, personal theory that I have, or anything I'm trying to push an agenda or anything else. Okay? If I think that their son or daughter committed suicide, I tell them. If I think that their son or daughter was murdered, I tell them. That doesn't mean I'm right. It doesn't mean I'm right, but there is no agenda but finding the truth. I'm not convinced these guys who have forwarded the Smiley Face Killer theory are interested in the truth. I think they're interested in they themselves getting attention for something they think. Okay? It's a difference. Dan, I do believe that they're doing this mother a real disservice by feeding her into belief that someone did this. Absolutely. Absolutely. I wish they would present straight up facts because that's what people want to see most of the time. Well, Tracy, we want to see that. But, a lot of people, unfortunately, they want a good story. All right? They want a good story. And I guess a good story is creating boogeymen out of thin air to blame on something. So, because sometimes, really, the truth just isn't that interesting. I don't personally care. I love the truth. But if you're looking for viewers on a TV channel and there's like 500 channels and Netflix and Hulu and everything else, sometimes just stating the facts isn't interesting enough for the viewers. And so they have to, start pushing the boundaries. It's because for them, it's not about solving for the TV channel. It's not about solving cases. It's about getting viewers. Got to remember that. And who knows what has changed their editing? Marie, very good point. Nana says, I wonder how they sleep at night. I just want facts. I don't know how they sleep at night. I don't know. So there's that. My voice is feeling a little bit better. Still got a cough going on. So there's that. The next thing that I want to talk about. So would I recommend you at least watch one episode? If you haven't seen it, yes. Then I think you will see what I'm talking about, and then we can talk about it. I'd love to continue to have a discussion with you, the listeners, about the Smiley Face Killer theory and what makes it so wrong and why I think it's horrible for the true crime community. There you go. The Las Vegas shooter. If you didn't see this, the FBI, I think it was yesterday, came out with what you might call their final report about Stephen Paddock, who shot up Las Vegas and killed all those people at that concert. And that was, it seems like it was yesterday, but that was what, a year and some months ago? It's crazy how time has flown. That was October 1st, right? October 1st, 2017, I think. That's crazy. It seems like it was yesterday. But the FBI says we may never know why he did it. Now, I have a problem with them saying that. I mean, if you're saying that, we didn't find anything written in his house. He didn't have a suicide note. We didn't find on his computer a file on why he said he was going to go to Las Vegas and shoot all these people, then yes, I guess we don't have an answer. But on the other hand, being that we know that he was blowing all this money and he was losing money and he was acting erratic and everything else, we kind of do know. We do know why he did it. Because the guy lost his mind. He wasn't part of a terrorist cell. Those people down at that concert didn't do anything to him personally. He was just a nut. And he wanted, I think he had to know once he started shooting that the police were going to show up at his room. He wanted to go out in a blaze of glory because he was nuts, and that's what he did. I don't know why we need to look at it any deeper than that. Hey, I'm all for any of these terrorist acts, trying to figure out what terrorist cell they're connected to and how they got into the United States and all these other things. The shooting in Las Vegas, the massacre in Las Vegas was not that. This guy was pretty much no different than that, whatever that guy's name was going back. What was the Texas A&M back in the 1960s? He shot all those people from that tower way back when. Same kind of thing. People just lose their minds sometimes. It seems to me that Stephen Paddock, at least up until the last year or two of his life, maybe a little bit of a weird guy or anything, but sounds kind of harmless. Then some things go wrong. Life didn't go the way he thought it was going to go. Maybe he started suffering from clinical depression for no reason. But we surely know the reason. Just because it's not written out or typed out and he didn't do a manifesto or anything, we just know. Now the problem is that suspecting why he did it doesn't help us in stopping the next one or the next person. That's really the problem. Is that learning as much as we have about how he put this all together and what he was doing in the days leading up and everything, it really doesn't help us stop the next guy or woman, because there's just too many people, in the United States. And the way the human mind is when we get set on something to plan something out, it's amazing how we can make it happen, whether it's doing something for very, very good or doing something for very, very bad. Oakley says they closed the case, could not find a motive. That's what the FBI says. I think the motive is right in front of all of our faces. I just don't know if we can accept it. And that means saying that this guy did this for no, what we would call outside tangible reason. The fact is he did it for his own personal reasons that had to do with some things in his life just not going well. On top of it, it seems that he did become mentally erratic before he massacred those people. That was the reason he did it. It's once again, it's just not something that can easily be grasped, because we look at, this guy had to have had an agenda. A lot of people don't. Michelle says, I have a problem with them saying that as well. Just rubs me wrong. Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, Charles Whitman, Oakley Flight Clubs. Thank you for digging that name out for me. Charles Whitman was the guy back in the 1960s who shot all of those students from that tower at the college in Texas, at the university in Texas. Yes. It's just that in the 1960s is just as bizarre as what Stephen Paddock did in Las Vegas in October. Both are understandable. And I think in the Whitman guys, he went and killed his wife and his parents or something like that, even before he went to the university and killed all those people. Just lost it. I think Stephen Paddock did too. He just happened to kill way more people. Those are the kinds of that's the kind of unpredictability that we live with, all around. It's just the way it is, and it's horrible. But I just don't know what we can do to stop these people if they have their minds set on it. Even if, even like in Norway, when that guy, I think what he claimed he was a white supremacist. He went onto that island and killed all those kids. I don't know. It's part of the worst part. It's one of the worst parts of living on the planet Earth. Wasn't his wife out of the country after being beaten by him? I don't remember about the beating part, but yes, she was in the Philippines because she had family there, Blaze, as I remember. Bree says, I feel like police don't like to blame mental illness on why crimes happen. I have to think about that one, Bree. Joe, good to see you. Blaze, yes, but he had a brain tumor and gone to the doctor. Yes, Charles Whitman, that is right. He had a brain tumor. Right. He did have a brain tumor, but in what I remember about it, Blaze, and I'm not an expert on Charles Whitman's shooting, but I don't know if they could ever say that tumor would have been in a sector of the brain where it would have caused him, to lose his mind. I guess it's a possibility. I mean, it's different than him having a tumor in his lungs. But I don't know if they were ever really able to connect the two. It was just a suspicion. So I don't know. Bree says there's such a stigma with mental health, and it's so sad. A lot of missing people who have mental health problems don't get the proper coverage they need. Yes. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it gets way out and take it too far. Yeah, You're right, Carrie. So I guess, except for the conspiracy theorists who are out there, just like the Smiley Face Killer phenomenon, we have people who have created all sorts of conspiracy theories that there was more than one shooter in Las Vegas, and Stephen Paddock didn't act alone, and maybe he didn't even do it. You're going to find all sorts of things out there. I guess for the most part, this case is closed, but we know that it's going to be examined for a very, very long time. Very long time. And being that that was my city, I lived there for 13 and a half years. I didn't know anybody that got shot. I don't even think I knew anybody that was even at the concert. I have to tell you, when I do go back to Las Vegas one of these days, and I will, I'm going to probably go by there, and they have a memorial, whatever, set up. It's going to be a very sad day for me because I really do love Las Vegas. I think it's a spectacular city. Spectacular city. And it's just very sad. Very sad. Carrie said, side note, the tower shooting is what the creation of SWAT came from. I think I knew that, Carrie. Thank you for reminding me. I think I knew that. Yeah. So the Las Vegas shooter, as far as FBI concerned, is closed. And they could find no reason that he did it. Okay. Let's cover one more thing. Michelle, I told you I was going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it right now. Word is out that there is an unidentified woman known as Lavender Doe who was found in Texas back in 2006. She has been identified, but as of this moment doing the show, she has not been identified. But my understanding from Michelle and some others is that that identity is going to be coming out shortly. Here's what I can tell you from an Unfound perspective, that there was a suspicion out there that this Lavender Doe might be Brandy Wells. It's not. Okay, it is for sure not. Okay, it is somebody else, and I'm sure that once this young woman, this person is identified, this young woman is given, a name is attached to her. We're all going to go to find out who she is and why she ended up there and why she wasn't identified until 13 years later. We're all going to do that. But from an Unfound perspective, it is not Brandy Wells. Now, on top of that, there is the belief, baby, though, that the guy who they believe killed not just this Felicia Pearson, but also Lavender Doe, his name is Joseph Wayne Burnett. I can also tell you that he is not suspected. And the reason I'm bringing up Brandy Wells is because this is all in the Longview, Texas area. The police talked to Joseph Burnett about Brandy Wells' disappearance. He says that he had nothing to do with that, and the police believe him. So the police at this point, 2019, do not believe that Joseph Burnett, although he murdered Felicia Pearson and it's believed he murdered Lavender Doe, that he was not involved in Brandy Wells' disappearance. That's where the case stands. Today's January 30th, 2019. That can always change. But I believe the police are telling the truth. But once again, we know how things can change. Hayden asked me, do I have any more Thomas Brown news? I do not. I have no new Thomas Brown news tonight. None. Michelle said that they said today that Lavender Doe is not from East Texas. Well, it'll be interesting to find out where she is from, Michelle. It'll be very interesting to find out if she is and how she ended up getting there. Very interesting. And as soon as I hear anything, I will post it in the discussion group. So that's all I got. Let's move on as far as news. Let's go move on to this Friday's case, the disappearance of Juanita Nelson. She disappeared from Boulder Creek, California on December 13th, 1998. Now, what's interesting is you're going to find a lot of information out there that says she disappeared on December 14th. That's not correct. And this is going to be one of many things that you're going to hear about her case that that's on the public record that isn't true. And in fact, I am calling this episode Straightforward to Nowhere, because although it seems like this case is very straightforward on the surface, once you hear the interview I did with Juanita's youngest sister, Katie, you're going to figure out that this case is a little more complex than everybody believes. And it could be that could be the reason it's still unsolved over 20 years later. Juanita Nelson was a little bit of a crazy teenager. She ran away. She got into car wrecks. She was skipping school. But as I like to remind all of you, we don't care about those things. If her family wants to figure out what happened to her, that's why we're here. So that is going to be Friday's case, the disappearance of Juanita Nelson from Boulder Creek, California, December 13th, 1998, an episode that I am calling Straightforward to Nowhere. And that's about all I got. Let's see, what do we do tonight? We talked about the Devon Bond poll. I'm back in Florida, as you can see. We talked about Patreon and how I'm going to be starting a live video show there on Sunday evenings for Patreon members at the $10 tier, $10 tier level. We talked about what can and what should not be posted in the group. We talked about Lavender Doe. We talked about the Smiley Face Killer TV show. We talked about the Las Vegas shooter. And then I went over the general facts of the disappearance of Juanita Nelson. My voice is giving out at this point, so I'm going to go. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Everybody that's, how old was Juanita? She was 17, Blaze. But I'm going to leave you all now. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. My favorite time of the week. But I'm back in Florida, and I hope my voice sounds better next week for next week's show. But I'm going to go say goodbye to all of you tonight. I hope you all stay warm up there in the northern United States. It was 60-some degrees here today. No, I'm not rumming it in. Good night, everyone. See ya.